So you're a
Yeah,
mom, right? How old's your son?
I am. My son is 11 going on 40.
So with
He's
an
like,
11,
children, they're so annoying.
that's what he says.
Yeah. He ain't got time for that. I mean, I'm a bit of an astrological person. I believe when you're born in certain periods of time, like, like if you're born in the summer, then you're just like this type of kid because your first experience was winter. And I think that
Oh,
stuff, like, I think it plays. And he's a Capricorn, and they're known to be like kind of Benjamin Buttons. Like they start off really mature, and then they get like younger as they get older. And I could
oh,
definitely like feel that with him. Like he's always been like the kind of kid that would sit at the table with you, and you can take him to a restaurant and have like conversations. And he's not like, you know what I mean? Like it's
he
just
knows
funny. It's like
current
an old
events.
soul. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's an only child too. So, that definitely plays a role. But yeah.
Yeah,
What
Mhm.
yeah.
what types of conversations have you had with him, or what kinds of conversations do you plan to have on him to equip him to handle the realities of the world he's going to step into?
We've had some conversations. So my son is actually of mixed race. His dad is white, and he was homeschooled most of his educational career. And so I
Mhm.
don't think it was until he went to school that he really thought about like, oh, like I remember him coming home and being like, I'm black. Like that's how people see me, and that's how the cops are going to see me.
Mhm.
So, and I would hear him saying things like, oh, like he'll see someone get arrested and it was kind of like peacefully. And he himself would say, well, it's a good thing they weren't black, because then the result would have been different. Like
Even
even
at
like
10,
without
11.
me
To
having, I think
realize
it
it.
was just things that conversations he was either having with his friends or watching, certain things on TV or whatever. And then it was like, okay, we need to talk about this. So
Yeah.
he kind of brought it up a little bit and had questions about it. And so I would say, well, we always have to respect the police. We always have to, I mean, it's not our privilege to have those abilities to just like talk back or argue our point or anything like that. It's like
Yeah.
if a policeman stops you, you make sure your hands are visible, they're on the wheel. You ask them, "Can I reach and get something?" I mean, he's not even of driving age yet.
Yeah.
But say if he's going to start to go out. Like I see teenagers in my neighborhood on skateboards. I live in a more predominantly white area. I
Mm.
see the kids out on skateboards and stuff, and he hangs out with other white kids. And another thing I have to tell him is that you can't do the things that your friends are doing, and you're not going to get the same result. So you have to
Yeah.
think about that. So I'll see, white kids on their skateboards out and about. And I know he will be doing more of that stuff soon. So I knew that it was time to have the conversation. And plus, he was going to see stuff, and I'd rather I think communication is so key,
Yeah.
in parenting, especially. They're hard, the conversations, but they really need to be had.
For me growing up, the talk was always like the sex talk. You know what I mean? Ooh. Have you had the talk with your parents yet? But like for you, Jordan, obviously there's a whole different the talk that you had to have, and I'm sure Asha that you have had or are going to continue to have with your son.
For sure, man. We did have like the awkward sex talk, but it was also like things to do and not to do, and like how me and my dad had like a conversation about like how you may be viewed when you get older. I was like 9 or 10, but like he gave me like a talk of like how you may be viewed when you get older, and specifically, being like a larger kid, I always stood out. Like that always stood out, and then you add on to that I'm a large black kid. Like they just let me know how you're viewed when you go out into the world and like handle yourself a certain way. And I remember specifically, I was in it was an improv class when I did comedy sports in Houston, and it was like nothing racial, just like a funny like being pulled over by the cops kind of thing. And one of my, like I did, the things that I would usually do in my life, your mom and everything. And one of my buddies was like, "Oh, you reached up for something like in your visor. Like what was that?" I was like, "Oh, it's my insurance." It's like, "Oh, why wouldn't you keep it in your glove compartment?" I was like, "Dude, I don't want my hands to not be visible at any point if I'm stopped by a police officer." And he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I never thought about that." I was like, "Yeah, that's something that I know to do."
That was just your space
So
work. You reached
exactly.
up instead of over.
Yeah, it was just like
Wow.
mine being stopped by a cop and like what you would do. I'm like, okay. So
And
yeah,
it's different for you than it was for other white people.
for sure. Like he had no idea that was what that was. I was like, yeah, man, I don't want my hands to not be visible, bro.
Mm-mm,
Just in
at
case.
any time. I feel like, with our conversations as of late about race, it's like, people will point out statistics. And like I saw someone said like, oh, this is about racism. Like, why is this so difficult? Like, shouldn't we all just be like, yeah, we don't like racism. Okay, done.
Boom. That's it. That's all you
There's
need.
no argument. Like, what is the difficulty? And it's
Yeah.
because it's like, they're not talking to, you know, people who live in areas where there's not a lot of Black people, they're going by statistics. But if you knew someone who was Black and you actually spoke to them from the heart, it would be different,
Yep.
So that's what all I'm trying to say is like, you're going to hear from my heart, more than statistics.
For sure. And that's the thing too. I feel like in these neighborhoods where people are being shot, where Black people are being murdered by the police, like you can run up to people that live there and give them stats and this and that, but that in no way is gonna tell you how those people feel. Because they may not know the exact numbers of people that are being gunned down, but they know like in my neighborhood, Black people are being shot. So therefore I'm afraid to have encounters with the police in my neighborhood or anywhere that I see police.
Right. The numbers,
Like,
the numbers nationwide, they could be the numbers nationwide, but for how one person feels in one's neighborhood, those numbers don't matter.
Not at all. At all.
That is good.